Good afternoon. Welcome to Resources Resolutions. This is our fourth session. We're broadcasting live to you from the Robert E. Smith Library in New Orleans area we call Lakeview. It's on the front on Canal Boulevard, but it's on the corner of Harrison Avenue. This is a new rebuild of the library, beautiful contemporary building that we've used all during the month of July, and we've scheduled our August meetings and sessions for that. So for those who don't follow us or don't know about us, we broadcast and hopefully get people to attend every other Thursday at 5 p.m. emanating from the library. We will try and do some other broadcast and in-person sessions at other locations and other times once we start getting a few more members. For those who don't even know what we're about, is that we are a free collaborative network, big words, right, of nonprofit and for-profit organizations. So whether you work at a nonprofit or you're an executive director or whatever, or all your work or your services are for dollars for yourself and your organization as opposed to for your organization's services to repay the products and services you do. We're trying to get these two groups, which historically have been separate entities, not too much crossover except for some situations where there would be individuals that worked in both and knew each other, and they might have some way to have correlation or collaboration, but usually it's more from a donation, financial status situation. Well, we want to do a lot more than that. We want to develop referrals for our for-profit members, and whether it comes from the nonprofit sector or from the other family members and friends or whatever, or clients of the hopefully for-profit members. And the nonprofit, we want to teach them from scratch for those who are startups how to actually get funding and to learn about their services. So when we start getting regular attendance or people that we can bring in as guests remotely, we will ask these new members to give us somewhere between a 5 and a 15-minute presentation of their company, their individual, their services. So each one of us will get to know. And if there's a possibility of donating and they're looking for fundings, of course, that'll all be part and parcel. But that's how it's going to be run. I'm the moderator or presenter or host. When we don't have subject matter of people here or sending in online questions, and I prepare topics every session that we go over in detail in trying to anticipate what a member or members would be looking for. As I said, if you want to watch us online, if you're not familiar, we're always on the YouTube channel, which stays forever there, so you can watch it on a belated situation if you can't attend when we're doing live broadcast. We're also on Facebook, on Bob Bockelman, on the New Deal, which is our dinner club, and also New Orleans TV Internetwork. Those three are Facebook accounts that profile pages that we actually broadcast live. We also, in addition to our YouTube, if you want to follow us the best way, and you can subscribe to the channel for free, is the letter R space the letter REVUE. If you see that, if you can see this little branding icon up in the top right of your corner, is an ant with a red star on it and holding R Review, which is the production company. Most of our shows have those two letters, R Review, the word review and the letter R in front of it, identifying just like this, even though this is Resources Resolutions, and of course review would be a third R. So you can watch us and subscribe to my channel, R Review, and you'll see it automatically. They'll let you know when it's on. Also, we're on LinkedIn as it's pronounced. It's called R Review, and on Twitter, The New Deal. Instagram, we have our own account, but it doesn't broadcast live because it doesn't accept the software. You have to broadcast live on Instagram software. Now, I don't know what's happening with Twitter. It's still showing Twitter live, but at some point, I'm sure, hopefully, it's going to allow us to do live broadcast on the new nomenclature called X, if Mr. Musk allows such. All right, enough about that. But all those are ways. And lastly, email. Bob at rrevue.net.com. Bob at rrevue.net if you have any questions. So if you're watching us on any of those platforms we just mentioned, you can go on there and type as well as you can any kind of question or comment on that, and it'll appear on the screen here. Because of my eyes, I won't be able to identify such, but my good friend Lynn, who runs the production part of this program, will let us know of any comments or questions that come through from the internet. So we hope you take advantage, because what we're here for, the purpose and the mission of this is not just to get people together only, but to get them together and to develop each other. All right, so each person will be a better company, person itself. We are looking for that to help you out as much any way we can, whether it's helping you find ways to get funds, donations, how to develop a company or a nonprofit from scratch. Any of these areas, we try our best to get you the resources. And what's good about ours is it's free, and I do mean free. Many of the for-profit networks actually charge an annual membership fee, which could be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Plus, if they do their section around an eatery, there's usually, of course, the extra cost of the meal, which, we're going to be exploring that for some of our other sessions other than the Thursday afternoon. Now, let's go ahead and start, since we don't have anything yet from anyone. Let's go ahead and start with the topics that I've already mentioned. Now, if you follow us on any of those platforms, especially the Facebook, etc., you will see all during the week I'll post out questions or topics, and a lot of those are for the upcoming session, hoping that you will respond or communicate, but if not, just reading it is fine, because we will touch base on most of those at either the upcoming session or a future session. So that's the whole purpose of the other promotions or postings, rather than promotions that we do. So today, if you've seen today's particular post we put on a lot of the platforms, is basically on different fundraising techniques. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, and we're not going to talk too much about this today, in the nonprofit, historically, grant writing, people would have people who would write reasons for them to have monies for the nonprofit to do their service or a particular project. A lot of that dried up when the national government started withholding or reducing budgetary concerns from a lot of the grants that they would do nationally, arts, etc. So now it's a much smaller piece. You can usually get grants from either your local government or maybe your state government, or even still some federal private institutions. And there's also some foundations that will give grants and or donations of money. But we're gonna pass on that today, because we want to talk about one of the categories that's very popular. It's almost a staple, certainly in the nonprofit world, and I think somewhat in the profit world, and it is auctions. Once again, one of the ways that nonprofits would get their members together to socialize, but also generate funds for their organization would be to have, in those days it was called a gala. They still, a lot of them do this on an annual basis. They will put a function together that includes maybe some music, certainly food and beverage, and auctions. Now, what are auctions? Well, for those who really don't know what auctions, even though we have antique auctions on TV and the familiarity of auctions today are so commonplace. Well, what happens is some organization or person has an inventory of items that they wish to sell, and they will ask for people to bid on it, give them maybe starting with a certain dollar amount. And then when the auction is over for that item or items, the highest bidder will get the product or the service. There are two types of auctions that have. One is the verbal, the other is the silent. What does that mean, Bob? The verbal usually means that there's a person who will call out and identify each of the items one by one that are to be auctioned off at that particular event. Okay? Now, because sometimes you might get hundreds of donated items, people will donate things to for you all to generate funds. The person or persons can't do that all night long because there won't be enough time. So what happens is verbal auctions are usually confined to the high dollar value. And remember, these values are done one of two ways. Most of the time, this is a subjective interpretation of the donor. Like if an artist wanted to get exposure and donate a painting or a sculpture, he or she would give it to the organization for their auction, for their fundraising, and assign a value. Okay, it might be $100, might be thousands of dollars. All right. Now, that doesn't mean that every time you auction that item, when you auction, that you're going to necessarily get that particular amount or more than that. In fact, the IRS has cut down in the old days because a lot of people were claiming these large dollar things, which really might not be worthwhile, and they were then putting a tax on it. So now it's if you go higher than the estimated value or the appraised value, then anything over can be deducted. But if you're buying it or bidding on it up to that value, you usually do not get a tax benefit if you're the donor, because it's just like you had it in your possession or you bought it yourself. So that's how that goes. But the idea there is a lot of organizations don't have verbal auctions because two things. One, uh, there's a whole career of auctioneers, and there's a schooling and a certification, etc. And for these people to come and do this at an event, they're usually going to charge. So once again, now here's an extra expense if you do that and use a certified auctioneer or a paid auctioneer. I have over the years donated my services, not that I'm an expert or not even certified, but been to so many auctions and know values of a lot of things because I'm all over the place with interest. So this is if you can impose on someone, even if they just read it, then again, if they're reading it just from the thing and don't know anything about the item or really can't be, let's call it as it is, an actor or an actress to project their descriptions and their emotions, they're not going to generate a lot of money for you. So even though they're nice enough to do it for free or you're being their member, it may or may not be as successful as you want, depending on the quality of the auctioneer and, of course, the generosity of those in attendance of the event. Now, silent auctions. Silent auctions can be held in two different places. One, the same type of event that a verbal auction can be. And what happens there is that and these are usually lower dollar items, and who, let's say under $100 or between $100 and $200 in today's reality values. But you're going to have a lot more of them than in the verbal auctions. This is where some of the most popular ones are like gift certificates for restaurants or coffee shops, or hotels will donate a night's stay or even a vacation or a fishing trip by certain individuals, organizations. So these could run up in the thousands of dollars in value and would certainly bring in more from the bidding, even if not equal to the value, than something that's labeled for $100 or $50. But what happens here, it needs booths or tables. X number of items are shown there. You see what the item is on display with a sheet with lines whereby you indicate your bid, your name, and your paddle number if there's such. So that way you can be properly identified. So when that booth closes, usually these close after at least a half an hour to an hour of being open, where people have time to go up there and bid, then you're called out when the auctioneer says or someone says the items in table A are closed, and you go to that table and find out whether you have won the item, and you, of course, then get a receipt or at least an invoice, which you take to wherever the pay station is to pay for the object that you bought. Okay, so there'll be lots of these, and hopefully the whole idea, even though it's lower dollar amounts, the volume will bring it up and help balance the amounts that they need. Uh, Now, written auction or silent auctions can be done online. And really, there's a combination. Nowadays, with live streaming, we can do it online for you. Now, we can actually go through these things at video, either do it on a tape basis or a live basis or both, and set it up just like an auction and have people use either some of the pay channels that they have now, the Venmo, the PayPals, or whatever method of payment, so that you don't even need to get out of the comfort of your home and you can buy some of these items that help these mainly nonprofits out. Okay, you just need to pay attention to what they're offering and when they're displaying it. If they don't have a person to do it live or video, then what they will do is they will just put the items, digital pics, in like Facebook or one of the platforms with the value and ask you to send a comment on how much you bid on it, and then the winner will then be have to have given the phone number or at least the email to contact it. And if he or she pays the amount that they have bid on, then they get the item. Okay, so that's how that works. And again, so verbal is usually high dollar items, but less items to be auctioned. Written or silent auctions are high number of items available, but usually with lower dollar thresholds, or lower dollar maximums or appraisals. Okay, that's enough about I think that. Let's talk. But again, that is a very common. Those are common auction items, way to raise funds. Uh, uh, you see some of these individuals, like on some of these programs like eBay and Etsy, who are not anything to do. They're for profit, and they do the same thing. Well, or an artist, where they'll auction off their painting or their sculpture or their plant, whatever they have, excess items or retro items or whatever, and you follow the same process. You will go on to their company name or store name and the platform they're on, and you will make a written bid on the comments when you see the picture of the ones that you want to bid on. Works the same way. But again, we're more geared to ones that are associated with a in-person event where people get to know each other, they get to enjoy each other's company, they get to have something to eat and drink and listen to music to pass the time while they're there during the event. And usually this is done on an annual basis, but can be done off annual or other reasons, or a special project if a particular school had to build a new wing or a new roof after damage and the insurance didn't cover it. They could run one of these special galas with auctions or with or without the gala and generate funds for that special project. Okay, some of the other ones are what we call them raffles or giveaways. Okay, what is a raffle or a giveaway? A raffle is, and a giveaway is part and parcel with each other. A raffle is where an item is available to be given, sold, let's put it this way, uh, to whoever, either the highest bidder, like at auction, or the lucky bidder. I think that most people will know things like lotteries or mega millions, whatever they call it, or Powerball. Okay. It's a form of gambling. There's no doubt about that, and we're not going to debate the horrors or the positives. The situation there is X number of people will put up usually a small dollar amount to get a chance to win an item, and whether that's in these national gambling casino lotteries or whatever, where it's big dollars, billions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars, or whether you're talking about a small organization or a person raffling off an object or a service. And usually that's done for a purpose, not just to get a dollar amount, unless it's just an individual looking to make money, but many of these are for dedicated purpose. A very common thing, these are done in elementary schools, where the teachers, especially, you can always hear that the teachers don't make enough money, and they have to not only do that, but they have to wind up coming out of their pockets to buy supplies. In the old days, I mean, supplies were cheap and you got what you wanted. You went to school and the teacher or whomever would provide it. All your parents would buy it. Well, now, even now, some of the parents can't even afford it because supplies are so many different things you need and so expensive. So they will have raffles, and some of these things are held where a mom might make brownies or so, and auction off or raffle off, excuse me, a whole dozen or a whole basket of brownies or a bunch of. So it's any kind of items, and also some commercial vendors will work with a teacher to sell their product where they'll be donated one item in order to get these monies to get people to come to their place of business. So that's what a raffle is about. And a giveaway is the same thing. Again, you can do these in person or online. Okay, in person would be at an event or someone at least is drawing the number. And usually these are done by, of course, if you see the TV and watch it on the TV, these big ones, they have just like a bingo. And bingo's another item we'll talk about if we have time. But it's just they have a device mechanically or technologically where ping pong balls with numbers and colors and letters come out of a vacuum tube and line up X number. And if you get the particular sequence of numbers that are affixed for that night, you win the top prize. Or you could win if maybe you get three out of the top five numbers, you might get to win a smaller prize. It could be multiple. The same thing here is that usually, though, most of these places aren't as sophisticated. They certainly don't have technology. They might have a bingo devices where they have which we have at home, which is a wheel, an encaged wheel with a handle. And it pops out a wooden number. And usually it's a bingo number or something like that. But you can use the same thing, or you can just sell tickets like in the old theater days where you buy a roll of tickets, those little small tickets that are really, when you buy a roll, it comes with two each with the same numbers on it. One you tear off and give to whoever's buying the raffle ticket. The others you keep because that's the ones you put in a hat or whatever to pull the winning ticket from. Okay? So this is, again, a very common one. It's a lot of it's used on elementary level, but can be expanded to any level, whether it's school or whether it's just an adult situation. And we want to give you some examples of what we want to do. Some of the stuff we can put online that we want to, when we start doing these raffles and giveaways, we're going to do two things. One is that we're going to be offering both in person and also online. And so you can go on to, if you're following us on YouTube or one of the others, you can submit your name or whatever we ask for that's required for you to be eligible for the raffle. And at the end of the event or the time period, that name or your name will be pulled and you'll be notified for a free gift, etc. Okay. Also, there's another way of doing this where, just like we talked about, one of the most common of the items that are on the silent auction are the gift certificates for restaurants, etc. We will also do that for beverages and meals, but specifically most of those will be for in-person events. So if we can get you to come in person to one of these events, probably held at that coffee shop or the eatery, then you would maybe be entitled to a free. With the coffee shop, we pull it out today. If you come to a meet and greet, we'll pay for your coffee. So that's an incentive there. Okay, now if you want to have a whole meal, then you probably pay for it. But when we start doing sessions, either around breakfast or lunch at these eateries, that again we will be using eateries that are members of our organization. So by being a free member, you're getting patronization, the purchase of your of your product for at least the number of people that attend. And then, of course, we'll also give gifts online if, in addition to things we'll do in person. So that's how we're trying to lure membership right now to get people to come. And again, you can be a member without coming in person and still qualify for some of these situations. Now, obviously, you can't qualify for a free cup of coffee because you won't be there to consume it. But we might also get coffee donated, et cetera, from the place, and we can send it to you. Or you can pick it up, et cetera, where you get a bag of coffee or something like that, or a gift certificate. So those are some of the things that we will use resources resolutions to patronize our businesses, whether they're for profit or nonprofit, as well as reward those who participate either in person or here online. The next thing, so that's kind of it for the raffles and the giveaway. We mentioned about bingo. I just threw that out. We've been trying to do bingo two ways. One is that a good friend of ours, a member of our organization, is a local attorney who's run for judgeship and will be running again. He's both a bankruptcy attorney and a traffic attorney. He is, and even before he ran last year or 2 years ago for his office, he's always been out in his community. So what he did, he took it upon himself by joining up with churches, different ministerial organizations in the New Orleans area, okay? And they would actually do bingos at their church, or even more importantly, at nursing homes, whether the church was involved or not. He would go and visit the nursing home and have someone run a bingo session for him. He would have donated items from different of his clients, or 9 clients, as well as financial. He might win $5, $25. The big thing here is that these residents would not have to pay a dime. Whereas most people know if you go to a bingo parlor or you really play bingo for any kind of financial or gift award, you're going to have to pay something. And usually that's an admission fee. They also include for you to buy a card. And what's a card? Well, the card is the one with the bingo items with the numbers and the rows and the columns for you to see if your number or letter is called out to determine if you win. So you would pay for that, admission as well as for sometimes you even have to pay for the instrument to mark off, stuff like that. But this is the way bingo parlors or casinos make money, because they charge you for every item, but they still give away dollars and cents usually for the winners of each party. Well, we're not going to ask for any contributions for our nursing home residents. So we work it out in advance, whereby someone will use one of the caretakers or their custodians or supervisors will use their camera and hook up live to us when we do the bingo, and they will know which resident wins and qualifies for a reward. Okay, so that's what we're talking about in the bingo area. We haven't started that, but so again, in all these situations, we would love for you to give us, whether it's a recommendation of a nursing home, whether it's a charity. A lot of Mardi Gras Carnival crews are nonprofit, and they do these bingos, but again, most of them don't have the time or the qualification. They just show up to play bingo and pay the necessary fees associated with such to get in the game. So we'll be running both sides, both the nonprofit for free as well as the for-profit for a charge. Okay, so send us any ideas you have, or anyone that you're interested in doing it at home. Now, for financial reward, we'll have to get a license for running a bingo situation, which will be, I have to know what department has to give us that with regard to a license to allow, and whether that's considered prohibitive gaming or not online. We'll find that out. But if we do it for free, it should not be a problem, meaning we don't charge anything. Okay, so that's another area we've gone over, bingo. I want to welcome Mr. Brian Macon, our stalwart member. We came in a little late, but better late than never, of course. That's our motto. And while we're talking about membership, we didn't in the beginning, I forgot to tell you, we talked about the way every broadcast and how you can join by either sending an email to me, bob@allreview.net, or on any of the posts that we post through the social media. You can tell us you want to join. The other way is that we've added a couple of weeks ago, a couple of weeks ago, I believe, this organization called Meetup.com. And on Meetup.com, which is a free situation, that was originally envisioned way back in 2000 for people to get together in their areas that have common interests, whether it's quilting, whether it's chess, whether it's going out drinking, or we had a dining club. My dining club I talked to you about that patronized the restaurants that were on my TV show. We used Meetup very successfully for years. So we resurrected that for this organization, and we would love for you to sign on there. Now, again, Meetup right now does not let you see us with regard to, they tell you all about the meetings and when they're scheduled, but they give you a chance to RSVP so we know whether you're coming or you're just hopefully watching or just membership. So whenever I get a new member with Meetup, or anyway, I send them a personal welcome, which is just courtesy. But I want to say their names as well, and when they start showing up, to actually let you see their picture or their live video. So this month we got 5 folks through Meetup.com. Mr. Terrence Joseph from New Orleans, okay. Miss Brandina Howell from Slidell across the lake on the North Shore. Mr. Miguel Brown from NOLA, New Orleans. Miss, and I'm saying Miss or Mrs., of course, Cindy Meadows, and she's from New Orleans. And lastly, Mr. Daniel Punt, and he's from Metairie or Jefferson Parish. So we got a nice little diverse group with regard just in 1 month for Meetup.com when we just joined. We're very excited about it. We beg you to please go on. Just if you don't know how to do it, if you don't know how to get an app on your phone, I understand, or you don't, just go on your phone or your laptop or your PC. If you can have the internet on your phone, type in your browser, Meetup, MEETUP.com. Go in there and register, and then look for our group, Resources and Resolutions, and then please join us there. And that will keep you updated, and you'll get to see, you can see who the other members are, and who knows, especially when we start getting people in attendance, some of these people will be able to go, and especially when we do social events that are tied to our sessions or without our sessions. So that way we can all become a little closer, a little more close-knit family. All right, let's see if there's anything else. Before I go too much further, Mr. Macon, did you have anything for us tonight?
Yeah, my delay, not just traffic. I had the last minute request to come pick up the site from.
Well, we need to tell people, and whenever you make that kind of statement, Mr. Macon has a nonprofit called Horns at Play. And what that does is allow brass instruments or whatever material metals they're made out of to be either brand new or refurbished to be awarded to usually high school students deserving who have done well, in the hopes that they will continue take music during the school year and also continuing it through their college curriculum should they go. So he's always getting different either donations or he actually purchases things. So he has people beside himself that does restoration. I know he just expanded for his school to the stringed instrument, just getting a selection of violins. So that'll be great for his wife, who's principal and member of our elementary school. And so that'll be a great resource for them to actually have a music program involving stringed instruments. Anything else besides that you might have? No? Okay, well, at least it's something. I think back to the membership and recruitment events. If you've read and this kind of goes hand in hand with what we just talked about with regard to the giveaways and not so much the raffles, but more the giveaways. I'm gonna do this. I skip one thing. Well, let's finish that since we're on membership. We're trying to do a series of recruitment events, and if you saw I had 2 posts today, even in a thing called Nextdoor, if you're familiar with that software, and I threw out questions. Would you come to a session if you had free coffee? And then we just talked about that. So we're going to be setting some sessions up in the morning for people who want to meet each other. Coffee's on me, and hopefully we can discuss the future and the present of this organization. Same thing as we get some of our restaurateurs who are going to be members to work around either a breakfast or a luncheon, but there will be a charge. You'll be charged whatever you want to eat. I can't afford to give everyone's meal, pick up a tab there. But what we will do a raffle at that, and one person will get a free meal who's in attendance. At least somebody will go with the expectation it'll be delivered. All right. Something else we wanted to talk about as part of fundraising is a thing whereby there's customized signature merchandise uh, creations that we want to develop for our members to use for their own themselves, their families they buy, and more importantly for their organizations, especially for the charity organizations. So we want to do some creation. One of the like I say, we talked about things where people will put together, like these coffee shops will put together a set of coffees with mugs and gift certificates, or people will put plants in a basket, stuff like that. But the two items that I'm considering trending right now is two sport related. Oh, Bob, sports. We don't have anything to do with sports. Well, these are more family oriented sports. And even though they're competitive leagues, at the same time, we're talking about just mom and pop, just fun items for yourself, your family, friends. One of them has been around a little while. It really goes back to the old days, but it's gotten resurrected with popular. It's called cornhole tossing. What a cornhole tossing is actually one or usually two wood vessels, where platforms, 2x6 or 2x4, I forgot, uh, that has a hole in the center, one hole or three holes, and someone has a bean bag, if you know what that is, and tries to toss it a distance, whatever that distance is, to get in that hole. And you go back and forth. So you usually have two of these platforms or boards, as they call them, opposed to each other. One person standing next to him for his team or himself or herself, and tries to get. And you get points every time you get a beanie bag or whatever it's called, toss bag in the hole. If you have three, then usually there are different values on each hole for you to score points. This has become, I saw today, in fact, for those who watch TV in the morning, the national television channel, the not W, NBC affiliate, the Today Show, actually had competitive champions on them, boys and girls, men and women, and they used the staff and paired up against the staff, and we're actually having competitions for a short vignette, of course, but not all of the whole show. But if you haven't seen that, I'm sure you can still catch that episode this morning. So a good friend of mine who's a carpenter and has done this in the past, has not volunteered, but is willing to create some of these. But we want to use some of our members. If we have any carpenters or that join us in the for-profit sector, then we can get them interested, if they are, in creating these things that we can use to donate to charities for their fundraising or for ourselves or for their organization. So if you know people who are carpenters, if you know anyone in any of the blue collar or white collar professional organizations, we would love for you to refer them to us to let them join the for-profit sector. Okay. Now the other item that is even much more trendy, and I'm not sure if we can manufacture this or not, is called paddleball. Paddleball is taking the nation, I don't know if it's international, by storm. It's kind of a combination of tennis, table tennis. I would think those are the two sports. It looks like it's played with some form of paddle or racquetball, if you're familiar with that, which is a solid paddle with a handle. But it's usually played over some type of, I don't know, it's official same size as the tennis court, okay? And there's their own scoring mechanism. So much so that one of our big celebrities here, our head football quarterback for eons and a revered celebrity, Drew Brees, has created for his kids and for whole national leagues of pickleball players. And I think it's relegated to the youth, and that was the original designation. So much so that they're actually having a big tournament. I've forgotten the date. August 10th, I think the 13th, either at the Superdome. I think it's at the Superdome, where two things. One, you can go in there and play for free. There'll be multiple courts, 10 courts that they set up. Or you can play for competition where it might cost you something, but you win a prize. So I don't think they're not going to be broadcasting it live, but I'm sure the stations will carry it after the fact. You'll see on the 12th, Saturday the 12th, to lure people to come. And I'm sure there's a charge because all the monies go toward his foundation, the Drew Brees Foundation that he uses for his charitable purposes. On the 12th, the celebrity match will be Drew Brees versus Jimmy, I think I'm not sure it's first name, McEnroe. Is it Jimmy McEnroe? Lynn will tell me, correct me later, but very famous tennis player. So if you like either one of those people or you want to just see what it's about, go out to watch for the post. They're posting all the time on Facebook and on TV they're calling it like the Pickleball Fest or something like that. But pickleball is somewhere involved in the name. So what we'd like to do is once we find out we don't want to rebuild a net, but if we can replicate the pickleballs, and the reason why we want to replicate this or the back to the cornhole boards is not just because there's numerous. If you look on Marketplace or Etsy, there's numerous cornhole boards, but to customize it. And some of them you'll see are flags, some of them are football teams. What we want to do is customize it for the organization that's going to be selling it, raising funds for, whether it's a charity, whether it's a school, putting their school logos on these things. So once again, it means more meaningful to those people that recognize that, like all of the alumni and the school teachers and the staff of a school, if you were doing something for them. So that's the difference here. If we can get them done cheaply and or donate, we want to do it for different causes and specifically our members first, our charity members first, and beyond that, if no one's interested in that. And those are the two we would like to put together, a whole regimen and a direction for our organization to go to help provide things for different fundraising techniques in our city. Okay. Again, what we would like to do is to use our for-profit members to actually do the manufacturing or the donation of these items, the customization of these items, so that way they're involved to get revenue as well from participating in the situation, even if they don't buy a ticket or a raffle or contribute to the organization. Now, one last thing, there's a new fund, and I'll say new to me, which doesn't mean it's new. And these are groups of people, not necessarily a foundation. We told you to begin. They give grants and they give donations to charities, etc. But these are people who may not be associated, may not be professionally employed ever, but may have the wherewithal and the interest in giving back to the community. Okay. And these people do fundraising, social events, which we talked about the galas, nothing to do with that. There's two that are going on right now. One local, a friend of mine, lady runs, called The Power of 100. Okay. The other one that's online is called $5 Club. Now, the $5 Club, when you start dealing, it's a little bit misleading. I don't want to say it's fraud, but it's more geared toward buying things, donating that it rewards like buying food or something from an item, and it's really just rewarding. I mean, I guess it could still be considered fundraising, but that's not what I'm looking for. So if you see the $5 Club, we're not involved with that. The Power of 100, and we're going to have our version of such, is, ready for this? A ladies-bound social organization, women only, so I can't even go. And sometimes we do quarterly, biannually, and annually. These people get together and socialize, usually at some type of eating event and drinking event, where they pay for their meal, which would be standard if you're going to the restaurant. But before the event is ended, you have to give a designated amount of dollars donating to the fundraiser. And then the Power of 100, guess what that means? Not necessarily as 100 members, but you give $100. So whatever your cost of your meal and your drinks, or you might have a discount like they have one in August. Again, ladies only at a famous restaurant out on the lake. The meal cost is like, well, they give them a standard meal. It's not a full sit-down meal, and it's like $45, and the first drink's on them, and then additional drinks. But they have to also bring that $100, whether it's cash. I don't know what their requirements are, but but you have to give $100. Now, there's another subset of this that really is a charitable fund. It's a fundraising for a good cause. We hear so much about how hospitality people, which we have an overabundance of here in New Orleans because of the fine restaurants, and because historically, for those who don't know, servers and buses were not paid more than $2.25 an hour, and would supposedly make their living from tips. And then the government got involved, and they had to be taxing tips as well. So, but now the whole movement is to get more of a living wage for them. Well, minimum standards of wage in Louisiana was 7.25. I know they're trying to go through 15. I don't know if it passed or not. I'll have to depend on people who follow that mainly. However, once again, some people who go to restaurants do not want to leave a tip. They feel these are employees and they shouldn't get a tip. So what happens in this organization? These group of folks, usually couples, doesn't have to be so, who eat together on a regular basis at restaurants here in the city, okay, will, ready for this? The tip will be at least $1,000. So when that, and again, when you see some of the events, they don't have, well, Bob, if they got 1,000 people, no. In these events, they're talking about 15, 20 at a dinner. Okay, and again, they're paying their regular freight on their meals, and whether they give a tip on that amount they bought, that's up to them. But they pool their resources, and they have to get out. Each one doesn't have to give $1,000, but so that's why they usually assess them again. That $100 at Benjamin is a very common request. So they want to make sure they're going to have at least 10 people at a dinner so that this waiter or waitress can get $1,000. Now, many of them will be generous enough and they'll go away with multi-thousand, which is even a more wonderful thing. But it's geared toward a specific individual, and it's all geared to much more unorganized or much unofficial type of fundraising. So that's about it for that. Anything? I'm sorry?
Minimum wage in Louisiana.
Still $7.25. So they did, but they were pushing this year to move it to $15 since we were supposedly flush with money, but obviously they didn't get passed. So it's still 7.25. So, and again, that's nothing. Well, if he works 8 hours, that's $56.07. The taxes have to be taken care of. And again, most of them don't work 8 hours. They have multiple shifts. And the worst part is if they do work 8 hours nowadays, it's usually overtime, and they're not getting overtime pay because the places are so short of staff ever since the pandemic. People can't get workers or employees to come to work. Okay. How are we doing for time? I can't say. Len?
5:49.
Oh, okay. So we have 11 minutes more. Again, we don't want to push it. Len, do we have any comments or questions?
No.
No. All right. So it's all silent on the Western Front. Or is it the Western? I guess I hope so.
I'd like to make one.
Mr. Macon, the floor is yours.
Okay, the minimum wage, according to state minimum wage laws, there are states that have increased it to $9.50 as of July 1st, 2023.
Yeah. Well, there's some states that moved, I think, to 15. But again, I can't name those, and it's certainly not within our purview, since most of our reach here, even though we can reach anywhere around the world if someone joins on our platform, but for the financial part of our reach, it's predominantly in our area. And so that would be within the state of Louisiana, which is 7.25. Maybe we might have some Mississippi people, but I know they won't be more than us.
In Florida, it's still $11, but on September 30th, it will increase $12.
There you go. Well, good for them. I'm glad to hear DeSantis is at least allowing for higher wages. Again, folks, but we're going to work within our parameters, And so, if we put something together, if we revise the kind of dinner club or something like that in conjunction with this, and we put it together with this, we have to have a reasonable number of people. And people who are willing. I mean, a lot of people don't want to do that because they're financially strapped themselves. We're in a very tight frame. So we're not pushing for that at all. We're mentioning it in case you see it, you come across about it in social media, or if you're asked about it by any either member of one of these or one of you'll get an understanding of what exactly it is. And then you decide how, if at all, you wish to participate in such. Okay? For the most part, if not at all, we will not be doing that in RS2, in Resources Resolutions, as a means of fundraising. Okay? Who knows in the future how far we go. But that's it. So we touched base on a lot of techniques for people to evaluate. And in the old days, as we mentioned, for nonprofits, the gala with the auctions was the only thing they worried about doing. They would write grants during the week. They'd have their grant writer or during the year, and hopefully get lucky upon one of those, or well informed, or a good donor who will give them money. But they depended on that annual event to bring in their operating funds for their crew as well as the services they do. And there's one other item that we have talked about where more and more of these events are also doing fundraising, whereby we have a thing called the Red Dress Run, which allows, after it's over, they charge the races. You go in a race anyway, and there's so many of those. People love the exercise and the congeniality. Those funds, or part of those funds that you pay for registration, will be donated to charity. So there's several of those where, if you're intuitive enough, you can get on the program with regard to, again, along with everyone else that could compete with you for those dollars. But we're not going to talk about that right now today because we're running out of time. Okay, we're going to, even if we're a little bit early, we're going to wrap it up since we haven't gotten any comments. We do appreciate those who stuck with us. And if you watch us after the fact, please don't hesitate. If something comes to you, send me an email, Bob@review, or put a message or a comment on the phone, on the platform you watch, because it will come through it. We will be able to see it, read it, address it in the future. Okay? Until such time, we thank you so much. I'm Bob Bockelman, and I don't know if you're suffering like we are, but I know this heat seems to be all over the place. So do whatever you can to just survive. That's all we can say. All right? Take care.